Welcome to Family Wealth with Esther, the podcast that's shaking up the family business space and sparking important conversations in our society. In Zimbabwe today, the cost of dying without a plan is no longer emotional. It's financial, it's legal, and ultimately generational. Whether you like it or not, you will pay, or your family will. And the questions you need to ask yourself is your family protected? Are your children going to inherit peace or chaos? Today, we're going to be talking about legacy and what structures we need to put in place to enable us to actually leave one. Oftentimes in our society, it's so common to hear that after the passing away of a family leader, right, the family is stuck in infighting and conflict and legal battles. And here's a really hard truth. In Zimbabwe, over 70% of our estates actually go into dispute because there's no clear will or structure in place. According to the Master of the High Court, most people die intestate, meaning that people die without an estate plan, leaving their families vulnerable to years of legal battles, confusion, and the loss of all the assets. And while we often talk about legacy being what we leave behind, today we really want to challenge that. And my guest today is no stranger to power, law, and the politics of succession. He served as Zimbabwe's Minister of Energy. He's a respected senior lawyer. He's the senior partner at Chasi law firm and an honored public servant, a man with deep understanding of how our legal frameworks can either help us protect what our families are building or ultimately leave us having destroyed everything we've built. So help me welcome Advocate Fortune Chasi to Family Wealth with Esther, who's also affectionately known in the streets as Chibabest. Welcome.
Thank you, Esther.
Right, so let's get straight into it. You've been practicing law for many years. And I think the first question that we'd want to ask someone with your wealth of experience is, in the years that you've practiced law, what is your experience? How many families actually have their affairs in order?
Well, you'll be surprised to learn that some of the very prominent, successful business people have not planned their estates and are not as organized as we see them in the public. And a lot of these problems come up when they pass on. So there are many families. I think a lot of the rich people that we know do not have a will, do not have a shareholders agreement that takes into account their desires. They basically do not have a structure. And many people run their companies from their pockets.
That's true.
The company may have a name, but it doesn't have a proper corporate structure that leaves a permanent footprint. So somebody wants to buy an asset, they go and negotiate with Mr. or Mrs. X. They may have a verbal agreement, which may not be known by the company, but in their mind, this is an asset of the company. Now, the problem with that is that they are likely beneficiaries, the spouse and their children do not know what he or she has been on about in terms of acquiring assets. So that's the first thing. There is no compact register of their assets. They are scattered all over.
Yeah.
They are in his head.
Yes, that's true.
He has been paid, money has gone into the company. When he sells a company asset, in his mind he's selling his own asset. So the money does not go to the company, it just goes into his pocket. A lot of people do not take advice when going through these transactions. So there is no lawyer involved. There are no financial advisors involved. And when they pass on, that's when hell breaks loose. People come and make claims and so forth. But one of the fundamental problems that we come across is the fact that our society is patriarchal. So the father does a lot of these things. The mother just follows behind.
Yes.
Maybe she's not allowed, or they are not allowed, depending on the numbers, to be part of the business. The kids are also not in the know.
Yeah.
Now, when you have a multiplicity of families, that complicates things more than when there is just one spouse. And the fact that you now have also a big number of children coming from the various households even complicates the matter further.
Yeah.
Some of the children may not be known, or even the wives may not be known. And yet it is very possible to organize these things.
That's true. So I think if I was to unpack your answer, that most families don't actually have their affairs in order.
Yeah.
And I think this is why we feel like an episode like this is very important, right? There are a lot of people who look wise, who look organized, but I think if we look at, just if we read headlines in especially after someone prominent dies, 9 out of 10, there's usually an estate wrangle ensuing a death, right? And you'll be saying, well, this so-and-so seemed, they had X businesses, they had X assets, and now everything is caught up in a dispute. So anyway, a significant portion of our businesses in Zimbabwe are family owned. In your opinion, and in your experience rather, what usually happens to businesses when founders pass away? And do you mostly encounter good stories, or do we end up with what we keep seeing in the newspapers, estate wrangles and disputes?
Well, I think definitely there are some good stories, but because they are good, we don't hear much about them.
Yeah.
We hear more about the bad stories. Now, what form does the bad story take? So, the father or mother are running a business, and let's say the father is in charge. He passes on. He may not have many families. He may have just one family. But what is common is that young people, the kids, havasi kuda kuita zvinhu zvavo ivo vakamirira kuti mudhara aite sei abaye, and then they take, but they forget that this man had a spouse, and upon his death the estate devolves to the wife. So you then find that there is now a conflict between the mother and the children, or the mother and the eldest child, especially if they are male, because their mindset is, I get into my father's shoes, so this thing is now mine. So during their life, they don't really work for something for themselves. They're just waiting for this asset. So you do have situations where mothers get into trouble. They are no longer on talking terms with their kids. There could be a male or female, it doesn't matter. The mindset is still the same. So it's important generally for people to construct a will, a valid will, preferably professionally prepared. The advantage is that then you articulate your wishes very clearly. You have your will done, it's taken to the master of the High Court for record keeping. Upon your death, it is made available and your wishes are carried out. But care needs to be taken to ensure that in coming up with your will, you then don't disinherit your wife, especially. Because there's a tendency by the men to say, okay, the business is mine. And in reality, they may have been running the business themselves. And when they pass on, they say the business is mine. Then maybe they give to somebody else or to another wife or another girl, and not the spouse that they were with. So the other aspect that is also important is dealing with shareholding. I often talk to shareholders in a company, especially if it's a family business, and sometimes not even a family business, and you ask the people whether you have a shareholders agreement. And in those instances, when they have a shareholders agreement, you may find that it does not have a clause or clauses dealing with how their shares are going to be dealt with upon their demise.
Okay.
So you have two shareholders, one passes on, the other one believes that the company is his alone. And so you have fights that come out of that. So when one also then prepares their will, they do need to make reference to the shareholders agreement to say, okay, I have 50% shares in X company, and those shares I would like them to be shared according to such a plan.
Yeah. I think from your answer, there are two things that we've encountered so commonly in our society. You know, if you were to just look up estate disputes in Zimbabwe, and you read two very prominent storylines: children fighting spouses.
Yeah.
Right? And in most cases, sometimes it's biological mother and children.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, it's maybe their father's spouse and the adult children fighting each other.
Yes.
You know, you mentioned something that, you know, vana vanenge vakuda kutora zvinhu vasina kushandira, you know, we're sort of coming into or fighting our way into something that we didn't really work for, and the spouse also has a right. What does the law say around, do adult children have rights? What does that look like actually from a legal standpoint?
Well, you see, the thing is, if a spouse dies, their share of the estate goes to the surviving spouse.
Okay.
So children need to understand that part,
Okay.
to say that their mother actually then inherits the entirety of the estate that is part of the estate.
Okay.
Because you can have a situation where people have been married for 2 years, but the businessman has acquired assets over the last 30 years by himself. So he can will that away. And when there is a situation now of the new marriage, whatever he puts into his will needs to take that into account, that these assets have been acquired together with the surviving spouse. Adult kids, young kids, dependent kids who have been under the maintenance of the deceased have a right to claim maintenance from the estate. And so you find what happens is the older kids have probably benefited more from the estate. So you have the eldest child has been taken to various universities abroad and so forth. And the youngest kid might be 5 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when one is constructing their will, they need to take that into account. So I always visualize this in the form of a triangle to say that if one is going to then parcel out their estate to their kids, the older you are, the less you get.
Yeah.
But, you know, when the older or the eldest guy is in charge, their mind sits,
I get
Chato
more.
changu, I can be giving you here and there. But forgetting to say that you have minor children who still need to go to school, go to university, do some training, and generally haven't benefited
As much.
from, the availability of their parents. So I think the bottom line really is that people shouldn't be greedy.
Yeah.
An inheritance should come as a bonus.
Yeah.
You should not look at it as something that you should wait for.
Yeah.
Because once you do that, you then get funny ideas. Like, let me get rid of this guy.
Yeah.
So that I access. Yeah. So you have all those stories when someone then dies, especially in our culture. Pane nyaya dzakawanda dzinobuda vantu akaurayiwa, akaurayirwa, I've dealt with a case where, as I was saying before, somebody's been running their huge empire from their pockets. And they've some simulated agreements. In other words, I make you a shareholder, but you are not really a shareholder. We're just using you, but it's X who is actually the shareholder. No, now you pass on. And that person that is on the documents says, the shareholder, my documents are to product 50%.
Yeah.
But at the time that this thing was done, there was trust.
Yes.
Yeah. So that trust, when it is translated into a document, someone can then go to court. So just do your things properly, and they should reflect what exactly is existing on the ground. And professionals are able to put together documents that can help you to do that. But once you have simulated arrangements, in other words, arrangements which are not real but which are fake, and they don't reflect the reality of what is happening, you stand the risk of disinheriting your entire family.
That's true.
Because somebody who has not been involved at all in the operations of a company will simply come and say, this is here are my forms.
Yeah.
Here is my shareholders agreement. What are you talking about? This is my company. And they can go away with it.
And I think what you used a very important word, trust, right? I think when it comes to family wealth building, trust is a very big issue, right? The existence of the trust, right? It's what makes people comfortable. For example, I've come across so many stories where a father will trust the eldest son, right? He will just trust that when I'm gone, he is going to do the right thing, right? Because maybe you've seen him helping you take care of siblings. And then when he's gone, that trust was invisible. That eldest son is now abusing the power that they had. And I mean, it's a time-old tale. I think even you look at stories like in Neri, and we had trust in our culture that if I die, Bamkuru or Bamlik will take care of my wife, right? There's this idea of trust, right? And so we don't plan because our plan is built on that trust we have. that ubuntu, that we are a people, my children will be taken care of.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, that lack of trust also then makes people hide things.
Yeah.
So I think trust when it comes to family wealth, family building, estate planning, and all of that is such a huge, player. And to actually go into, you've spoken a lot about the will, and in this day, trusts are becoming almost like fashionable,
Yes,
right? People keep
yes.
saying, I encounter a lot of people say, "Ah, indakarongeka ndine trust," right? And they believe that this trust is the embodiment of order and wisdom. Let's unpack trusts in Zimbabwe, right? Their strength, their weaknesses. What are they really? What are their limit? Do they have limitations? Walk us through.
Yeah. So
trusts in
basically, in forming a trust, one is divesting themselves of certain property and donating it to the trust. Okay. And this trust is constituted by people that you trust. So I think all of us do have some people that we believe can look after our interests if we are gone. So normally when it comes to men who are wealthy, there is somebody that is close to them who may know all the spouses and the spices. and so the person decides that, okay, they're going to have Chasi as the trustee or one of the trustees because they know that he is not going to steal from his family. And he's going to make sure that the little kids, the big kids, everyone is taken care of. Baba na mai vari kumusha, their health is taken care of. And, they basically supplant the owner of the property with this person who is trusted. So normally it's a number of people that you appoint as trustees. So the trustees can run the business and they have a fiduciary duty towards beneficiaries of the trust and the trust itself. In other words, they cannot do things to benefit themselves or do things that do not benefit the trust itself. So to that extent, it has advantages in that you are not getting every Tom, Dick, and Harry in the family coming to the bus company and wanting to run it and Toramari kuma conductor or stuff like that. So your choice of trustees must be deliberate. So it must be a good mix of skills, depending on what the business is. Okay. If it's a farming enterprise, you want somebody who understands farming. You also, there's money to talk about here. You need somebody with financial skills. It's always wise to involve a lawyer in it. So you have a good mix of trustees. You are not just taking your friends or relatives. Yeah, because it happens a lot that upon the demise of the owner of a business, the family starts to be involved. And they say that during the time that our relative was unwell, the wife was not looking after him well. Very subjective ideas. Yamshungurudza or anga ne boyfriend, that type of thing. That does create problems within the states. So organizing yourself is very critical.
Okay. Now, you've told us how important it is to the setup of the trust, right? The importance of the trustees, the capability of the trustees, and then ultimately it means that the trust is protecting the assets. The trust owns the company. What are the limitations of a trust?
Well, one of the key limitations is that trust may not be permanent,
Okay.
right? Somebody could be trustworthy whilst you're there.
Yeah.
But once the situation changes, they may also change into something else and begin to see the trust as their own personal property. Now, it's something that is very difficult to deal with because you can't predict how somebody's going to
Yeah.
to operate in the future. But generally, if you know somebody, you've known them for a long time, you must have some independent evidence that tells you that indeed they are trustworthy. Are there situations in the past where they could have taken advantage, but they've actually come to you with your $1,000,000, which was lying idle somewhere that you had forgotten about? Said, look, there's this money, you seem to have forgotten about it. So I think it's things like that that show their independence, their disinterestedness in the trust for personal gain. And it's a difficult process, but one that one must get through. Of course, having trusts also has some tax advantages, but you may have somebody who is trustworthy, but who may not have the requisite skills to run the assets.
Okay.
So yes, they are trustworthy, but they will run down the company because they've got no clue what it is about. So it's all those considerations that the person donating their property to the trust needs to ensure that they are those skills and people are able to actually operate properly. So yes, they are becoming very common. Some of them are not registered.
Okay.
Some are registered with the deeds registry, which adds a bit more protection because
Okay.
it's in a professional archive.
Okay.
So the lawyer has done the documents, they will have a copy, the deeds registry will have, and the client will have. And so those are things that can also be captured in a will. Okay. Because you may register or have a trust registered or structured, but it's all in your head. People will not know about it, and they will just deal with your property as if it's your property. Because if, say, it's landed property, it's a house, many people in theory transfer the property into the trust. In other words, they can do a deed of donation to say I've donated to the trust, but the property is actually not transferred to the trust.
Right.
So you might find that there is a conflict between what, say, the surviving spouse is able to do and what the trustees ought to do. Okay. So it's useful to have some communication about these things. Yes. Before you pass on, because when you're passed on, there's no way you can be communicating about it. And a will can be written, but one can have can express their wishes to their family members, not once but many times. That if I die, this property to go to so and so, this one, this one, this one. But you know that it's taboo. Yeah, when you start saying things like that, kana ndafa chakati dotchinde kuna why are you saying, are you about to die? And yet the reality is that we are all going to die at some point. Anzishiri nozongofa.
Yeah.
So we need to appreciate that reality and plan for it.
Yeah. I think you've unpacked quite a lot of important things that maybe it's wise to have a will and a trust and find a way to ensure that both documents can actually communicate with each other. And secondly, that the trust is actually registered. Because I think a lot of people are saying they have trusts, but these trusts are unregistered. And then also, I just picked up what you said about the deed of donation, that sometimes you can seed a property into a trust, but you don't actually finish the transfer. So you still end up with a lot of bits and pieces that are loose ends that are not properly tied.
Yeah.
And I think another something we're seeing right now in the public space, in public media, we've got a spiritual leader in the country, right? And it's a topical issue, who's being taken to court over some investments, loan or capital that they accessed, and according to the financier, they're saying, well, you've hidden your assets in a trust, right? So there's that asset protection that comes with a trust, and they're trying to sue to access the properties in the trust. In terms of, and I think that's one thing that a lot of people, why they want to have trusts, is to sort of protect their assets from these sort of liabilities where you've borrowed and you've done all sorts of things. And in some ways, people actually protecting assets from each other in a marriage. That I've put my house in this trust so that my wife, if I leave her or if she leaves me, the trust becomes the beneficiary. None of us leave with anything, something like that. What does that look like in terms of the law of Zimbabwe? Is there a legal case for a trust being sued? Does it really mean that if an asset is in a trust, it's totally protected?
Yeah, well, you see, at the end of the day, or at the beginning of the day, the motive or motivation behind forming a trust is key. It must be a legal motive. You can't go and rob a bank of 5 million, buy houses and put them in the trust, and then they sit and say, you can't touch me. You see? So the trust must be bona fide.
Okay.
Yeah. And where it has been established that the motive was to avoid the very obvious consequences of the law, the danger exists that veil will be uplifted and the properties can still be dealt with. And the example I've given you is a dramatic one. To say, yes, you form a trust, but wakaba mari ukatenga dzimba about some trust. Now, if the authorities are able, or a litigant is able to trace the movement of those funds to the property that you've put in the trusts, the person that you robbed will surely want to follow through and say, no, but this is not a genuine, trust. It is a structure that is fraudulent, that is meant really to hide what the person has stolen from elsewhere. So yes, I'm not familiar of the specifics of the case you refer to, but as long as it can be shown that it's not bona fide and it's meant to conceal what should otherwise be available for execution, then the courts would be prepared to open it up and say, Tata ina.
That's a very interesting point, because I think most people just believe that a trust is bulletproof, right? And I think you've actually given us quite an important insight.
Actually, Esther, there is no corporate structure that is bulletproof, to use your terminology. Even a company, there is the concept of lifting the veil. If somebody does something under the auspices of a company, but they are actually doing it themselves, the courts will be inclined to say, in fact, the separation of personality between the individual and the company is fake. It's actually you who was doing this, or it's actually a specific group of people, and the law will deal with them. So the same applies to the trusts.
Okay. I think that's an important point. And we'll be right back on Family Wealth with Esther. In our next segment, we're going to be touching on something that's quite topical in Zimbabwe right now, which are changes to the Marriage Act. What are the implications of the changes that have been made to wealth building? What does that mean to us as couples, as people that are building their wealth together, right? And we're going to be marrying into this discussion around trusts and wills. So sit tight, we'll be right back. And we're back on Family Wealth with Esther, and we want to talk about the marriage law, right, and the new Marriage Act and changes that have been made around the Marriage Act. So what are the biggest changes Zimbabweans need to be aware of around the Marriage Act, and what are the implications on wealth building and estate planning?
Well, as you know, the new Marriage Act of 2022 combined the customary approach to the general law approach to marriages. This has given more protection and more prominence to customary marriages. Okay. As you know, there are so many families where the husband and wife were married for 6 years, but there was no document. And so marriage really, in the African context, has always been in the heart and not on the piece of paper. So now, with the advent of general law approaches to property, you find that the patriarchal nature of our society means that the husband can take everything after, acquiring all that with a spouse whose marriage has not been registered, and that has created a lot of problems, and also situations of multiplicity of spouses.
Spices.
Yeah, spouses and spices, and so that is also one thing that has complicated things. And so there is now recognition of both civil and customary marriages. But these are topics that are very topical, so to say. They still cause problems. Yes. To say you're now encouraging men to have many wives. Yeah. I'm married to somebody for the past 40 years, and they move away from me for 2 weeks, and they stay with somebody during that 2 weeks. That person is able to argue that they are their wife, and they can also now try and dip into the family estate. Right. So those are some of the contentious issues that are coming up. But each case, of course, has to be considered on its own merits, on its own specific circumstances. But I think it's an ongoing debate amongst Zimbabweans. I don't think it's something that we can completely deal with and solve. It definitely has implications on property. So you have the customary approach where siblings of the deceased, and we talk more about the husband. When the husband passes on, the siblings, in addition to the children of the deceased, also come into play. Yeah. Some even want to inherit the wife. And in some cases, the wife may want to be inherited. So
That's a good one.
yeah, but you also have cases where the eldest son may want to inherit their father's their father's spouse.
Yes.
There are
Yeah.
situations like that. So it becomes quite complicated, especially when the surviving children are minors, because they're not able to assert themselves or their rights. So vamdiki vanongotanga kutoita in charge
Yeah.
pamba ipapo, and sometimes the wife can be chased away from.
Yeah.
And I've seen in some traditional courts where the woman is actually chased away with the blessing of the court, particularly if they then decide to have a relationship with somebody else.
I
So
see.
the family will say, you can only stay here if you are not going to have a boyfriend. Yeah, if you once you have a boyfriend, they're going to kick you out. In the meantime, this woman is 6 children,
Yeah.
6 minor children.
Yeah.
And whereas if it's a man, it's a different case altogether.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Even during the life of the deceased, they can have as many partners as they want. And yeah, so that's how complex it is.
That's actually interesting. You've brought in a point that you'd actually never considered, and I think it's so important in the context of our culture, because I believe that when we're going to have effective wealth conversations as Africans, they need to be contextualized.
Yeah.
Sometimes coming with advice or information that's Eurocentric, that doesn't take into account what African families actually go through. Because when you're advising a family, you can't take them out of their context.
No,
right?
you can't. Yeah.
You have to give them advice that makes sense
To them
as
their
a people,
situation,
and to who they are and how they construct their families. And it's interesting to see, how whether we'd be able to get an alignment between our traditional courts, the estate planning side as well, right? To say where we've got these, and they're becoming so prominent. I think with social media, we're really seeing our traditional court, people going from Harare
to be tried there.
to be tried in a traditional court.
Yeah, it's true.
The alignment of what we're talking about here with the trusts, the wills, estate planning, and whether the traditional court would also take into consideration things like that.
Yeah, in some situations, the traditional court can stray into areas which are not part of the traditional customary rules. For example, business transactions that may be happening out there, Kumusha, may end up before a traditional court, and it may pronounce itself over that matter. It could be a mining claim, so now you have mines everywhere. So you have a mine, somebody who has registered their claim in a village. A village is under the chief.
Under the chief, yeah.
But mining itself is a general law issue governed by a piece of law that is not under a chief.
Yeah.
So that breeds some conflict. But I think the biggest advice one could give to people that are in customary unions is to follow the principle that is in the law now, that you can register. If you are registered, and I believe chiefs have started registering marriages. Okay. So it's important for the protection of women especially to have that customary union registered. But I don't know practically whether the male partner would be willing to do that when they have many partners, and but
that was
certainly,
going to be my next question.
Yeah.
How many registered customary unions can one have?
Yeah, I guess, because look, it's all about barika, basically.
Yes.
It's sort of a way of formalizing barika. So whilst the woman can only have one partner, the men can have a litany of
Okay.
partners.
So they can all be registered.
They can all be registered and all have rights. Yeah, in that estate.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting. And I think we once had a panel discussion with a few lawyers, and we actually were unpacking this as well. And there was a big debate around civil partnerships and how they're now covered under the new Marriage Act. What does that look like? You actually gave us an example that if someone goes away for 2 weeks, right? So now when we're talking about civil partnerships, in some ways, I guess it's good. They can protect, say, let's say you've lived with someone, you're not married, you've lived, and maybe you now have a business together, but you're not married, you've lived together for 5 years,
Yeah.
right? But you're not married, you are entitled to something. But the flip side is being in a civil partnership with someone who is married,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. What is
Yeah,
it?
walk us through what that looks
Yeah,
like.
no, I think it's a very difficult proposition practically, because I can envision a court trying to understand this civil partnership. It has got to go through some inquiry to establish whether the essence of a marriage exists in the partnership.
Okay.
And it can't be solely that you have lived together. If that happens, then a lot of young people who live with their boyfriends and girlfriends would ipso facto be married.
Yes.
And yet they have deliberately abstained from being married for their own reasons and chosen to simply have what one would term, partnership, maybe a loose arrangement where one can just walk away. There are no children, there's no property to share. So, yeah. But so that inquiry has to be carried out to establish whether, in fact, this is the partnership that was contemplated by the law. The time factor is important to say how long.
Yeah.
2 weeks, of course, is a funny time
Yeah.
to say that you have been married. I think millions would be married automatically. But I think one needs to go beyond that and look practically into what has been happening. And what do we mean when we say living together? If somebody comes to your house once this week and twice next week, is that living together? Should they be coming home every day? What exactly does it mean? And your finances and other relationships, are they communal? Are you sharing anything that you can then, say, we may not be legally married, but we have been living together as husband and wife. Yeah.
I think that's very interesting. And like you said, topical,
Yeah.
right? Increasingly, we're seeing in our society a lot more of this polygamous setup. And it's no longer age. It was sort of, when we were growing up, it always seemed like it was done by anasekuru.
Yeah.
It was something that was sort of traditional. But you're seeing a lot more of the younger generation having multiple spouses.
Yeah.
Right? And you're building a business, you're building assets. What are the common mistakes that business owners and polygamous or these blended families make in structuring their business affairs or their estate plans? And what advice would you give someone who's in that? Because I think here when we're looking at wisdom, we're not looking at the right and the wrong. We're saying what is the wisest way to approach the life that you've decided to live?
Yeah, polygamy is always been a contentious issue.
Yeah.
And I think rightly so. I think the fact that one has one wife does not necessarily mean they are responsible.
Yeah.
I believe that there are people who have run polygamous arrangements responsibly, made sure that everyone is well accommodated, and the children have gone to great schools, great universities, and the father has been a superhero looking after his particular setup. But it's not always like that. Yeah. In a lot of situations, one of the spouses gets preference. It could be the main house, or it could be the younger, maybe more beautiful one whose interests are taken care of. But the law expects that all these people will be treated equally. So even when one has done their will or their trust, it's not cast in stone. You have to keep on reviewing it. So you have 10 spouses, you have added another 2, you need to go back to your will to update it, or to your lawyer to have it updated. Because you may, and these things always have an element of agency in them. Because if you don't give them that attention, you know, you just wake up the next day and you're gone. You know, and the problems balloon once from day one. Vanochemerwa kupi? Where is the burial?
There's a rankle over the body.
And you know, those are legitimate things to put in a will. You know, to say, where is the person going to be buried?
That's important.
I know of cases where the brothers-in-law have said, we're going to bury him kumusha. And they've literally snatched the body and taken it against the will of the wife and the children. So there is nothing wrong in being specific. So everything is capable of being put, or cremation. It's not common amongst African people in Zimbabwe, but it's common in other, Indian societies. That's like the primary way of. Others donate their bodies to universities for students to study, but it has got to be culturally specific and culturally sensitive. In African culture, doesn't work like that.
Do not all go well.
But if somebody put it in their will, that is what they want, and the courts will have to enforce that.
I think that's an important aspect that you've touched on, that oftentimes conflict of wishes becomes apparent at funerals. And the source of conflict, even now from an estate point, is you've already started with conflict over how you grieved, because grieving is an emotional process, right? Nobody grieves rationally. When you are grieving your father or your husband or the father of your children or whatever it is, or a mother, right? You've now got a lot of women that now own their own factors of production and wealth. You start with the issues already at sekuru vakati vachavigwa uku. Then you say, no, mama vakati vadavigwa kuglen forest. Then already there's conflict. By the time you want to sit down with the family to start discussing assets, you're sitting with people that are...
Some are already at the company or business premises and motor
That's true.
Those things happen. So I think the bottom line really is estate planning is very critical. You have to think through in a very serious manner. Consider all the corners. Consider your beneficiaries. So a will is not just about benefiting your children. Neither is a trust about that. Some people have been known to donate everything to churches or to their cats. Doesn't happen in Africa, but it happens. It happens. It happens elsewhere. But people can also be disinherited
If they
in
did
a
that,
will.
we will think that
Yeah.
it's a spiritual matter, that this
Yes,
cat was the
yeah.
one who owned all the wealth.
Like ukarwa baba kavanokubvisa pawill
Yeah.
ukavatuka or disrespectful or whatever, he can specifically say, this one, I don't want him to benefit.
Yeah.
You know, or if you've benefited before and maybe you've just been, you've abused your inheritance, you may say, no, you got what you got, you abused it. This is for the balance with the children. So I really think that people need to look at the ways of planning for their estate to protect their families so that they do not become the cause of havoc after they've passed on, but they avoid a situation where kufa kwangu zvarova, because and that's something that maybe I ought to have touched on, you know, involvement of your family. I did speak about that. The need for people to know what is happening with the business. And also to be trained for those that are willing to participate in the business so that they know the intricacies and, you know, the detail around the particular business, so that they, in the event that you pass on, they understand exactly what needs to be done. You know, you have exposed them to the business. But of course, if you run it in your pocket and some of the papers are in your drawer, they are not in a file at the office, and maybe you have several offices, it just makes things very, very difficult. So in addition to estate planning, you also need to have a skills development plan for your family. It could be the spouse, and it could also be the kids, the children, and many people involve their children right from the beginning. So if it's say a mechanical business, you find a youngster during school holidays, they actually go to the business premises and they are running around with spanners, and as they grow, they know exactly how to fix this thing, where the spare parts are bought, and, you know, that type of thing. And they also begin to know the finances, and they can step into the shoes of the deceased parent when the unfortunate but inevitable happens.
That was a very important point. That you can build a legal structure, you can build a legal framework for your family, but if you don't have the skill set now within the internal skill set to be able to say, okay, well, we were left this house or we were left this farm, but we don't have capacity. So even if it's well structured, but you've still got people on the inside who have no idea what is going on, then you still have sort of weaknesses within the estate plan itself. So I actually really like your point that part of your estate planning should actually be a skills development plan. So whether that's skills development with your spouse, skills development with your children, however you're doing it, right? You're building human intellectual capacity within your family and within your business to ensure continuity. And as we wrap up, you know, you like we said, you're an advocate, you've been at this for a very long time. What do you think is the biggest impact on families you've worked with? Do you think it's the legal frameworks, like the trusts and the wills, you know, the hard things, the paperwork, or is it like more personal, like the conversations that families have and the communication that they have within?
Yeah, you see, if you recall, when I made reference to a marriage being first in the heart, then onto paper. Yeah. So you can have very good pieces of paper, but which are not supported by people with their hearts in the correct place.
Right.
Just like you can have a marriage certificate, but from the wedding, the cheating has started, but the marriage certificate is there. So I think there's need to emphasize the human side of things, and the business continuity side of things. First of all, to build trust within your family, and you build trust by being open about what you're doing, what you have acquired, what you are disposing of, and that is how you build trust. But if members of your family who include your spouse or spouses have suspicions about what you're doing, that's what one of the things that creates, because the mother's suspicion will go to the children as well. So on your passing, you have these pockets of mistrust everywhere. So one needs to have structures that enable children to know. These days, people have WhatsApp groups. I've bought this, I'm thinking of selling this, I'm thinking of buying this. And let them have input. They may disagree with you. It's part of being in a family. But I think for purposes of business continuity also, to make sure that they're involved in the operations of the company, so that you don't just have people who are foreign to the family knowing what happens in the company. Because if that happens, then there will be a lot of asset stripping that will happen without people knowing. So yes, we emphasize the importance of the legal documents, but they must be supported by trust and skills that have been developed within the family.
I like that. That's a very important point, and I think it's the crux of why we have a podcast platform like this. We want to encourage families that outside of having structures, legal structures, businesses, houses, assets, that's not really the main foundation of generational wealth. The wealth of the family is the family itself. And if we're not intentional about building the communication, the transparency, the discussions within the family, then it becomes very difficult then lay a wealth on top of that really shaky foundation.
Exactly.
So thank you. That's a very important point.
You.
And before you go, if you were to advise your loved ones, right, or your children, right, what key piece of advice would you give them around these topics, around marriage, wealth building, businesses, partnerships? Of all the years of experience, what are the life lessons you've learned that you could leave us as the listeners on Family Wealth with Esther?
Well, I think the first thing for young people is work for yourself, build your own wealth. That should be your target, to say, okay, I'm going to do this for myself. And if you are able to benefit from the state of your parents, well and good. But you should be in a situation where you say, okay, there's 6 of us. I'm okay. I'll let the 5 youngsters benefit. But it's because you have laid a firm foundation for yourself.
Yes.
Usamirire kutaimira tunhu twemuntu madhara. Ita zvako iwewe, if you then benefit, that's fine. But and also in a marriage situation, be open about what you are doing. Involve your family in discussions, in acquisitions, in disposals. Deliberately upskill their knowledge and skills regarding your particular businesses. Let them know what is happening, what are the issues, what is bothering you. Don't die of high blood pressure because you have nobody to talk to. Yes, talk to your spouse, to your adult kids especially, Don't just come home grumpy and angry with everyone because wavarwa mari, but when you were doing that transaction, you didn't share with people. People would have said, no, but maybe you should do this. Don't do this. I know this person. They've done this before. So I think that's generally what I would advise. Then on customary marriages, please register them. On wills, please have wills. And when you have wills, they're not cast in stone. Review them periodically to factor in new developments. And on trustees, look for credible people who have the requisite skills to run your business.
That's an important one.
Yeah.
You mentioned it earlier that men always, the person they trust the most is their mother.
Yeah.
So I've seen quite a few trust
Trust
documents that have people's mothers on them.
That's
and
true.
It makes sense because that's the one person you trust. But the flip side is, are they qualified and skilled to now actually run
and you know, sometimes you then create a problem between your wife and your mother.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, Gunzuri, mama's boy. And the wife says, so you don't trust me, you trust your
mother.
Your mother. And yet, Amai may not have the skills to run a technology company.
That's true.
And yet that's what you really want to business to continue.
That's true. Thank you so much. We shared so many powerful insights, and when it comes to the law, I think we're going to keep revisiting. We're going to have many more episodes because we can't unpack everything that covers, wealth and estate planning, trust laws, and so many more other aspects of the law that are important, company law, changes that are happening within our legal system, and even then looking at international law, different jurisdictions. We have so much more to unpack in the coming episodes on Family Wealth with Esther. And to all those who tuned in today, thank you very much. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. The information and the knowledge we're sharing here is going to build someone. The Bible says that a man of knowledge increases strength. So the more you know, the stronger you become, and the more you can, implement your knowledge and actually become wise, because wisdom is the implementation of the knowledge that we have. So take the things that we discuss, and most importantly, don't listen to them, implement them in your lives. And until then, keep it in the family and in the business.